Hello boys and girls, welcome back to Mr. Pui's English class. Today we are going to read about a city from the past. Today's rules are, I can fill in the blanks with correct answers, and also I can use capital letters and punctuations correctly in my sentences. Before we go to the text, let's look at some of the words here. The first one we have is shopping center. Shopping center. Repeat after me. Shopping center. Good. Shopping center is a place or an area with a lot of shops for you to buy things. If you can see, this is a picture of a shopping center. Let's move on to the next one. Carriages. Carriages. Repeat after me. Carriages. Good. Carriages are actually vehicles, four-wheel vehicles that are pulled by horse or horses. They may be pulled by one or two or more horses. Let's move on to the next one. Noisy. Noisy. Repeat after me. Noisy. Yes, when someone says you are very noisy, it means you are making too much noise. Or she means that you should be quiet. Before we go on, let's read these words again. Shopping center. Shopping center. Carriages. Carriages. Noisy. Noisy. Alright, let's go to the text. This text, A City from the Past, is also in your textbook, page 78. Now, Mr. Pui is going to give you 1 minute to read through the text. Alright, now let's listen to the text.
This is a picture of New York City in the year 1900. It was very different then. There weren't any shopping centers or cinemas, but there were shops and theaters.
Alright, let's listen to this text again.
This is a picture of New York City in the year 1900. It was very different then. There weren't any shopping centers or cinemas, but there were shops and theaters.
Good. If you can see from the picture here, this is actually a picture of the New York City in the year 1900. It is very different now. At that time, there weren't any shopping centers or cinema. If you can see from this picture, this is actually a theater, and they only have some small shops in New York City. Let's go to the next paragraph. I'll give you some time to read this paragraph. Alright, let's listen to the text.
There weren't many cars back then, but there were lots of horses and carriages. The streets of New York City weren't quiet. They were noisy and full of people, just like today.
Alright, let's listen to this again.
There weren't many cars back then, but there were lots of horses and carriages. The streets of New York City weren't quiet. They were noisy and full of people, just like today.
If you can see from the picture here, you can't really see many cars, but you can see a lot of horses and carriages. The street of New York City weren't very quiet because it's very noisy and they were full of people, just like the New York City now. Before we go to the text or the questions, let's learn some words here. The first two words that we are going to learn are was and wasn't. Was and wasn't. The word wasn't here is actually a short form for was not. Was not. We use these two words to describe things that are already happening before. These are actually past tense. And these two words, was and wasn't, are used for one thing. For example, you see we have a theater here. We can say there was a theater. There was a theater. And if you can see here, there is a bus here, but with a big cross. That means we don't have a bus here. So we can say there wasn't a bus. There wasn't a bus. We use were and weren't for two or many things. We use were or weren't for two or many things. The word weren't is actually a short form for were not. Were not. For example, we have two carriages here. We can say there were carriages. There were carriages. We do not use the word was because we have two here. If there is only one, we will say there was a carriage. Yeah? Now move on to this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 cars here with a big cross. We can say there weren't many cars. There weren't many cars. Let's do some revision on these 4 words. We use was and wasn't for one thing. A theater, a bus. There was a theater, there wasn't a bus. We use were and weren't for two or many things. Carriages, cars. There were carriages. There weren't many cars. Now you have learned these 4 words and the text. You are ready for the worksheet. Happy trying and goodbye. Alright boys and girls, that's all for today. Thank you for joining me at Mr. Pui's English class. See you again! If you like Mr. Pui's English class video, please click like here and also click on the subscribe button. Bye!